So you're driving down the street and all of a sudden you hear it. Oh no, the sirens. Your day is about to get bad. You're getting stopped for something that you did wrong while driving. So now you're also carrying a concealed firearm. How should you handle this situation? Well, once again, we want to use the safe techniques. So in this case, we're going to start with S, show your hands. A, ask before moving. F, follow directions. And E, end confusion. So let's talk about how this works when you get stopped by a police officer. Remember, first of all, that rules are not universal when it comes to getting stopped. So as a concealed carry person, you need to know how the laws work in your area. Sometimes you have a duty to inform the police officer that you have a firearm. Other times, it's your option to inform. So you need to know if you're required to or not. But here's what we're going to suggest to you. Let's just go with the way that makes the most sense. And I can tell you this from a retired law enforcement officer's perspective. What made me comfortable when I went up to somebody that had a firearm. So again, using the safe techniques, the first thing I want to do is show my hands. If you are getting stopped, the best thing you can do is put your hands on your steering wheel. If you can't put them on your steering wheel or prefer not to, put them out your window. Do something to show the officer your hands. Why do we do this? Because the hands are the things that police officers are trained to watch, because that's what does harm to them, is people's hands reaching for weapons or doing other movements. So if you show your hands, you are showing good intent, and that's going to be helpful to you. And the next thing is A, ask before moving. If you've got your hands on the steering wheel, the police officer says, I need to see your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. Don't just start reaching for it. Ask, hey, I have my wallet in my back pocket, or I have my registration in my glove compartment. Is it okay for me to move there to get them? Let them know clearly what you're doing. And as you do it, move slowly. Don't make sudden movements. Move nice and slow and casual to help make sure that everything stays calm. Next, follow their directions. If you start to move and they say, actually, don't reach in your glove box, pull your hand back or freeze right where it's at. Follow their directions. And finally, E, end confusion. What I mean by this is make sure that you let them know as soon as it's practical to do so, that you have a firearm with you. That is the common sense thing to do. And the reason why is this. If I inform a police officer, sir, I have a firearm in my vehicle and I'm licensed to carry that firearm, you're telling them a couple of things. One, you're letting them know that the firearm is there. They're not going to be surprised and come across it accidentally. Two, you're letting them know I'm legally licensed to carry it. That is kind of letting them know, hey, I've gone through a process to be backgrounded to know I'm not a bad guy. And while they might not necessarily take your word for it, you've at least given them that heads up. You've ended the confusion up front. So you've let them know that you have a firearm. You've let them know you're licensed to carry. Now is where you really might need to follow directions. They might tell you to retrieve your firearm. Sometimes they will ask you questions like, where are you carrying it at? Oh, I've got it on my right hip. They might tell you, okay, with your left hand, reach over and pull it out of the holster and hand it to me. And you might say, wait a minute, I don't want to give up my firearm. I don't have to legally give up my firearm. You might be right. You might not legally have to. You might legally have to. It just depends on where you're at, what jurisdiction when this takes place. But why wouldn't you? Give up your firearm temporarily for the traffic stop if it makes the police officer feel more comfortable. Whatever you do, follow their directions and keep them aware that you have a firearm with you. The bottom line is, you want to make it easy on yourself. And the best way to make it easy on yourself is by being polite. Because if you're polite to the police officer, you're following their directions, generally they're going to be at least courteous in return, and the stop is going to go much more smoothly. Now, in some places, there is a duty to inform the police officer that you have a firearm if you're carrying concealed. That is if you get stopped on a traffic stop or other official type of business. So a police officer is stopped to interview you or ask you questions or something like that in an official capacity. In some places, you're required to let them know you have a firearm. But this question comes up at times. What about if I'm standing in line at Starbucks and a police officer starts a conversation with me? Hey, how you doing today? Do I have to say, just so you know, I got a firearm? No, you don't. It only applies if you're in an official interview with a police officer. So don't make the situation awkward if a police officer makes casual conversation with you over a cup of coffee and you go, just so you know, officer, I'm carrying a firearm on me. That's going to be a little awkward for both of you. So no, you're not required to inform in those situations, only in an official capacity.